He broke into her warship, then spent 6 hours teaching her to deceive her superiors. The warship Vigilant Doctrine moved through the darkness of space like a predator searching for prey. Commander Vela Sorrenti stood at the observation window of her quarters, watching the distant stars. Her scales, a deep blue-green color that marked her as Cathari nobility, reflected the soft light of the control panels behind her. It was the night cycle on the ship. Most of her crew slept in their chambers. Vela should have been sleeping too, but she could not quiet her mind. 3 months ago, she had received this command. 3 months of patrolling the quarantine zone around a small blue planet called Earth. 3 months of making sure no human ships escaped and no outside ships entered. The humans were dangerous. Everyone knew this. The hegemony had taught this truth for generations. Humans were violent, unpredictable, and could not be trusted. They had attacked peaceful hegemony vessels. They had started wars. They had forced the Great Council to quarantine their entire world for the safety of all civilized species. Vela believed these things. She had been taught them since childhood. But lately, small doubts had begun to grow in her mind like weeds in a garden. Her personal terminal beeped softly. An alert. Vela walked over and looked at the screen. Her heart jumped in her chest. Life sign detected. Cargo Bay 7. Unknown origin. This was impossible. The Vigilant Doctrine had not docked with any station in weeks. No shuttles had approached. The cargo bay had been sealed and empty since their last supply run. Vela's first instinct was to call security. That was proper protocol. That was what a good commander would do. But something stopped her. If there was an intruder on her ship and she called for help to deal with one person, what would her superiors think? They would think she was weak. They would think she could not handle problems on her own. She needed this command. She needed to prove herself. Vela picked up her sidearm and checked the charge. Full power. She moved quietly through the empty corridors of her ship, her clawed feet making soft clicking sounds on the metal floor. The lights were dimmed for night cycle, casting long shadows everywhere she looked. Cargo Bay 7 was in the lower section of the ship. Vela took the service elevator down, her weapon ready. Her mind raced through possibilities. A stowaway from their last port? A malfunction in the sensors? Some creature that had gotten into the ship without anyone noticing? The doors to Cargo Bay 7 slid open with a soft hiss. Vela stepped inside, her eyes adjusting to the darkness. The bay was filled with supply crates stacked in neat rows. Emergency rations, spare parts, medical supplies. Nothing moved, but the sensor had detected life. Something was here. Vela moved between the crates, her weapon raised. She controlled her breathing, keeping it slow and steady. Her hearing was excellent, a gift of Cathari evolution. She listened for any sound that did not belong. There, behind the third row of crates, the softest sound of breathing. Vela rounded the corner quickly, her weapon aimed and ready to fire. She found a human. He sat on the floor with his back against a crate. He was older than she expected, with gray in his dark hair and deep lines on his face. His clothes were torn and stained with something that looked like blood. One hand pressed against his side, where a wound had been wrapped with crude bandages. He looked up at her with eyes that held no fear, only exhaustion. Vela had never seen a human in person before, only in training videos and propaganda images. Those humans had always looked savage, their faces twisted with rage. This man looked tired. He looked like someone who had been running for a very long time. She should shoot him. She should call security. She should do many things. Instead, she found herself frozen in place, her weapon pointed at his chest. The human spoke first. His voice was calm and quiet, and he spoke perfect Cathari without any accent. Commander Vela Sorrenti. Graduated top of your class at the military academy. Assigned to border patrol at your own request. You wanted to be far from the politics of the Central Worlds. Vela's grip on her weapon tightened. How do you know my name? How do you know these things? I know many things, the human said. I know that 6 months ago, you requested access to the classified files about Velen 4. I know your request was denied. I know that you asked questions about why the official reports did not match the sensor data from that day. Vela felt cold. Those requests had been private. She had told no one about her doubts. Velen 4 was a human colony, the human continued. The official story says that the colonists attacked a hegemony diplomatic vessel, that the hegemony was forced to respond, that, regrettably, there were no survivors. That is what happened, Vela said, but her voice lacked conviction. No, the human said simply. That is not what happened. I was there, Commander. I saw what really happened. And I think, deep in your heart, you already know the truth. Vela should have shot him then. Every part of her training screamed at her to eliminate the threat. But she could not move. The doubts she had pushed down for months were rising to the surface. You have a choice, the human said. You can shoot me now. You can call your security forces. You can be a good soldier and follow your orders. No one will ever question you. You will rise through the ranks. You will have a comfortable life. He paused, his tired eyes meeting hers. Or you can lower your weapon and listen. I have 6 hours before my extraction arrives. 6 hours to answer every question you have been too afraid to ask. 6 hours to show you what the hegemony really is. Why? Vela asked. Why would you risk your life to talk to me? I am no one. I am just a commander of a patrol ship. The human smiled. It was a sad smile, full of old pain. Because someone has to start asking questions. Because every empire that ever fell because people on the inside stopped believing in it. Because right now you are standing at a crossroads, and what you choose in the next few seconds will matter more than you can possibly understand. Vela's arm was growing tired from holding the weapon. Her mind was chaos. Everything she knew, everything she believed, was being challenged by this wounded human sitting on the floor of her cargo bay. She thought about the files she had tried to access. She thought about the questions she had asked. She thought about the answers she had been given and how those answers had never quite made sense. The human waited. He did not beg. He did not threaten. He simply waited for her to decide. Vela lowered her weapon. Talk, she said. He broke into her warship, then spent 6 hours teaching her to deceive her superiors. They moved to a small maintenance room near the cargo bay. It was cramped and filled with pipes and electrical panels, but it was private. No cameras watched this space. No sensors recorded their words. Vela sat on an overturned crate while the human sat across from her on the floor. She had given him water and a medical kit from the cargo bay. He cleaned his wound as he talked, his hands steady despite the pain. My name is Marcus Cole, he said. I was an engineer before the war. I built ships. I had a wife and 2 daughters. We lived on a colony called New Brisbane, far from Earth. Vela listened. She did not interrupt. The hegemony found Earth 63 years ago, Marcus continued. Your people were not the first to discover us, but you were the most powerful. At first, things seemed good. The hegemony offered trade, technology, medicine. We were so excited to learn we were not alone in the universe. He wrapped a fresh bandage around his side, wincing slightly. But we learned too fast. That was our crime, Commander. We took the technology you gave us and we improved it. Within 10 years, human engineers were building ships that matched hegemony designs. Within 20 years, we were building ships that were better. That is not possible, Vela said. Humans are a young species. You could not match what we have built over thousands of years. Marcus looked at her with something like pity. That is what your leaders thought too. They called us primitive. They called us simple. They never understood that humans have one gift that makes us dangerous. We adapt, we learn, we take what we are given, and we make it our own. Vela thought about the training videos she had watched. Humans were always shown as savage warriors, fighting with crude weapons, never as engineers, never as builders. When the Hegemony Council realized what was happening, they became afraid, Marcus said. A species that could match their technology in decades instead of centuries? That was a threat. So they made a decision. They would stop us before we became too powerful. The wars, Vela said quietly. The official records say humans started the wars. The official records are lies. Marcus pulled a small device from his pocket. It was damaged, held together with tape and wire, but a faint light still glowed on its surface. This contains evidence. Recordings, documents, communications between Hegemony commanders. Everything I am about to tell you can be proven. He set the device on the floor between them. The first attack was not on a Hegemony vessel. It was on a human research station called Kepler's Hope. 3,000 scientists, engineers, and their families. The Hegemony called it an accident, a reactor failure, but the radiation signatures matched Hegemony weapons. Vela felt sick. She had read about Kepler's Hope in her academy courses. The textbook said it was an example of human carelessness. Human inability to handle advanced technology safely. After that, there were more accidents, Marcus said, more failures, more unexplained disasters. Humans started asking questions. We started investigating. And when we found the truth, we tried to tell the galaxy. We tried to show the evidence. What happened? The Hegemony declared us hostile. They said our accusations were proof of human aggression. They said we could not be trusted. Marcus's voice grew heavy with old grief. Then came the quarantine, and then came Velen 4. Vela leaned forward. This was the answer she had been searching for. This was the truth, hidden in those classified files. Velen 4 was our most distant colony, Marcus said. 40,000 people living on a cold world at the edge of explored space. They were peaceful. They were not soldiers. They were farmers and teachers and artists. He paused, gathering himself. The scientists on Velen 4 achieved something remarkable. They built their own faster-than-light drive, not based on Hegemony technology, something completely new, something that could have changed everything for humanity. That is impossible, Vela said again, but her voice was weak. Your leaders thought so too. They thought lesser species could not innovate. They thought we could only copy, never create. When they learned about the Velen 4 drive, they panicked. Marcus reached into his pocket again and pulled out a piece of paper. It was old and worn, folded many times. He unfolded it carefully and handed it to Vela. It was a drawing made by a child, simple lines in bright colors. 2 figures stood under twin suns, holding hands. One figure was clearly Cathari, with scales and a tail. The other was human, small and round. At the bottom, in clumsy letters, someone had written, "Friends forever." I found this in the ruins, Marcus said. After the Hegemony fleet finished their work, after they killed everyone, men, women, children, 40,000 people erased because they dared to build something new. Vela stared at the drawing. Her hands were trembling. The official report says the colonists attacked first, she whispered. The colonists had no weapons. They were scientists and families. The Hegemony brought 3 warships to that world, 3 warships against farmers and children. Tears were forming in Vela's eyes. She had not cried since she was a hatchling. Cathari did not cry. Cathari were strong. But the child who drew this picture had believed in friendship, had believed that Cathari and humans could hold hands under twin suns. And that child was dead now, killed by Vela's own people. "Why are you telling me this?" Vela asked. Her voice broke on the words. "What do you want from me?" Marcus looked at her with understanding. "I want nothing from you, Commander. I only wanted you to know the truth. What you do with that truth is your choice. But I am one person. I am nothing. I cannot change anything." "That is what every person thinks," Marcus said gently. "Every person who ever changed the world started by believing they were powerless. But you have something rare, Commander. You have doubts. You have questions. And now you have answers." Vela looked at the drawing in her hands, the two figures holding hands. The twin suns above them. "If this is true," she said slowly, "then everything I believed is a lie. Everything I fought for. Everything I am." "No," Marcus said firmly. "What you believed was what you were taught. What you are is who you choose to be from this moment forward. The hegemony made you a soldier, but you can make yourself something more." Vela sat in silence for a long moment. The weight of truth pressed down on her shoulders like a physical burden. She felt her world cracking, breaking apart, reforming into something new and terrifying. But beneath the fear, she felt something else, something that might have been hope. "What can I do?" she asked finally. "How can one person fight against everything?" Marcus smiled. It was a tired smile, but there was warmth in it. "That," he said, "is what I am going to teach you." He broke into her warship, then spent 6 hours teaching her to deceive her superiors. The next 2 hours changed everything Vela understood about survival. Marcus stood now, his wound cleaned and bandaged, his strength returning slowly. He paced the small maintenance room as he spoke, his hands moving to emphasize his points. Vela watched and listened with the focus of a student who knows her life depends on the lesson. "You cannot fight the hegemony with weapons," Marcus began. "They have more ships, more soldiers, more power than we could ever match. But there is one thing they do not expect. One weapon they have never learned to defend against." "What weapon?" Vela asked. "Lies." Vela felt confusion. "Kethari do not lie. It is against our nature. Our empathic abilities make deception almost impossible. We can sense when someone is hiding the truth." "Almost impossible," Marcus repeated, "but not completely impossible. And that is what I am going to teach you. The human art of deception." He stopped pacing and faced her directly. "Humans have been lying to each other for thousands of years. We lie to protect ourselves. We lie to protect others. We lie to survive. We have become very, very good at it." Vela felt uncomfortable. Everything she had been taught said that lying was wrong. Lying was weakness. Lying was what lesser species did because they lacked the honor of the Kethari. "I am asking you to do something that feels wrong," Marcus said, reading her expression. "But let me ask you this. Which is more wrong, telling a lie to your commanders, or following orders that murder innocent children?" Vela had no answer. "The resistance does not need you to fight," Marcus continued. "We do not need you to steal ships or kill admirals. We need something much harder. We need you to survive. We need you to stay exactly where you are, doing exactly what you do, while quietly helping us when you can." "A spy," Vela said. "No, spies gather information. What I am asking is simpler. I am asking you to be a good officer who sometimes makes small mistakes, mistakes that happen to help humans survive." Marcus began the first lesson. Rule 1. The best lies contain truth. Never invent things that did not happen. Instead, leave out details. Change the order of events. Emphasize some facts and ignore others. Your commanders will sense that you are telling the truth, because you will be. Just not the whole truth. Vela nodded slowly. This made sense to her. It was not lying exactly. It was choosing which truths to share. Rule 2. Believe your own story. This is the hardest part for non-humans to learn. You must not just speak the lie. You must feel it. You must divide your mind into 2 parts. The surface part believes the story completely. The deeper part knows the truth but stays hidden, quiet, still. How is this possible? Vela asked. Practice. Repetition. Humans learn this skill as children. We have to, because our parents can always tell when we are lying unless we truly believe our own words. Marcus smiled slightly. It is not a skill we are proud of, but it has kept us alive. He walked her through mental exercises, how to create a story and then step inside it. How to push the truth deep into a locked room in her mind, how to be two people at once, the loyal officer on the surface and the secret rebel beneath. It was exhausting. Vela failed many times, but slowly she began to understand. Rule 3. Small rebellions only. Never do anything that can be traced back to you. A delayed report, a censor that malfunctioned at just the right moment, a prisoner who was transferred instead of executed. Each action must be explainable as accident or coincidence. But such small things cannot change anything, Vela protested. One drop of water cannot move a mountain, Marcus agreed. But millions of drops, falling over thousands of years, can carve valleys through solid rock. You are not the only person I have spoken to, Commander. There are others like you, scattered through the hegemony. Each one doing small things. Together those small things become a flood. Vela thought about this. A network of doubters, hidden throughout the hegemony, each one making tiny changes that added up to something larger. It was a very human idea. Patient, long-term. Impossible to fight because there was no single enemy to strike. Rule 4. The long game. Humans understand waiting. We understand that some battles cannot be won in a lifetime. We plant seeds knowing we may never see the trees. You must think the same way. Do not expect to see the hegemony fall. Just work toward a future where falling becomes possible. Marcus spent the next hour running her through practice scenarios. He pretended to be a suspicious commander, asking probing questions. Vela practiced her answers, learning to redirect without refusing, to tell partial truths that satisfied without revealing. She learned how to file reports that were technically accurate but missing key details. She learned how to explain delays and mistakes in ways that seemed like normal incompetence rather than deliberate action. She learned how to control her empathic broadcast, keeping her surface emotions steady while her deeper feelings remained hidden. It was hard. It went against everything she had been trained to be. But slowly she felt something new growing inside her. Not just skill, but purpose. Finally, Marcus gave her the ultimate test. He asked her about the cargo bay. He asked her what she had found during her patrol. He asked her if she had seen anything unusual tonight. Vela looked him in the eyes and lied. Nothing unusual, she said. Her voice was calm. Her empathic broadcast was clean. Even knowing the truth, Marcus could not sense the deception. I checked Cargo Bay 7 as part of my routine inspection. All supplies accounted for. No anomalies detected. I returned to my quarters and worked on crew evaluations until I grew tired. She felt the lie as truth in her surface mind. She felt herself believing the story she told. The deeper truth waited quietly below, patient and still. Marcus was silent for a long moment. Then he smiled, but there was sadness in his eyes. Perfect, he said quietly. You learn faster than I expected. Vela did not feel proud. She felt like she had lost something precious. Her innocence, perhaps. Her simple understanding of right and wrong. But she also felt something else. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was choosing her own path. Not following orders, not obeying training. Choosing. There is one more thing you must understand, Marcus said. Being a good liar is painful. You will be alone. You cannot share this burden with anyone. You will have to watch bad things happen and pretend you do not care. There will be times when you hate yourself. Then why do you do it? Vela asked. Why do humans live this way? Marcus considered the question carefully before answering. Because the alternative is worse. Because when there is no hope, you must create hope. Because someone has to light the candle in the darkness, even if the darkness seems endless. He looked at her with something like respect. You asked earlier what you could do. One person against an empire. Now you know the answer. You become two people. The loyal officer who follows orders. And the quiet rebel who lights candles in the dark. Vela understood. The lesson was complete, but their night was not yet over. Outside the maintenance room, the ship's internal communication system chimed with an unexpected announcement. All senior officers report to the bridge. Unscheduled vessel approaching. All senior officers report to the bridge. Marcus and Vela looked at each other. Fear flashed across both their faces. Someone was coming, and Vela would have to face them alone. He broke into her warship, then spent 6 hours teaching her to deceive her superiors. Vela's blood ran cold when she saw the approaching ship on the bridge display. It was an Inquisitor-class vessel painted in the dark colors of hegemony internal security. These ships did not patrol borders, they hunted traitors. Random inspection, her first officer explained. High Inquisitor Torvek requests permission to come aboard and review our operations. Vela kept her face calm, even as fear screamed inside her mind. She thought of Marcus, still hiding in the maintenance room near Cargo Bay 7. She thought of everything they had discussed. She thought of the child's drawing, still hidden in her pocket. Grant permission, she said, her voice steady. Prepare the ship for inspection. Standard protocols. She returned to the maintenance room before Torvek's shuttle docked. Marcus was already preparing to hide himself in a narrow space behind the electrical panels. It was cramped and uncomfortable, but the thick metal would block most sensor scans. You should leave now, Vela whispered urgently. Your extraction can come early. I will create a distraction. Marcus shook his head. If I leave now, they will detect the energy signature of my escape pod. They will know someone was here. They will interrogate you. I can handle interrogation. No. Marcus's voice was firm but gentle. You are too new at this. Torvek has broken hundreds of people with more experience than you. He will find the truth, and then you will die, and everything we discussed tonight will mean nothing. Vela wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. She was not ready, not yet. Then I will handle Torvek, she said. Stay hidden, stay quiet. I will come for you when it is safe. Marcus reached out and gripped her arm. Remember everything I taught you. Surface truth, deep stillness. You can do this. Vela nodded once, then turned and walked away. Her hearts were beating too fast. She forced them to slow. She breathed deeply, pushing her fear down into the locked room in her mind. When she reached the docking bay to greet Torvek, her empathic broadcast showed only calm duty. High Inquisitor Torvek was old, ancient, even by Cathari standards. His scales had faded to a pale gray, and his eyes were the color of frozen water. He moved slowly, but there was nothing slow about his mind. Vela could feel his attention like a cold blade pressed against her throat. Commander Sorrenthi, Torvek said. His voice was soft, almost gentle. Thank you for receiving me. I hope this inspection is not too inconvenient. Not at all, High Inquisitor. The Vigilant Doctrine is honored by your presence. Torvek smiled. It did not reach his eyes. Shall we begin? The inspection lasted for hours. Torvek examined everything. The bridge, the crew quarters, the weapon systems, the cargo bays. He asked questions constantly, probing for weakness, searching for lies. Vela answered each question carefully, giving truth that was not the whole truth, believing her own words on the surface while the deeper truth remained hidden. They reached Cargo Bay 7. Vela's hearts wanted to race, but she controlled them. She controlled everything. "This bay seems underutilized," Torvek observed, walking between the crates. "Your records show it has not been opened in several weeks." "We are well supplied, High Inquisitor. There has been no need to access these reserves." Torvek nodded slowly. He pulled a scanning device from his belt and began sweeping it across the room. Vela watched him move closer to the maintenance room where Marcus was hiding. The scanner beeped. Torvek stopped. He looked at the reading on his device, then at the wall behind which Marcus was hidden. His cold eyes narrowed. "There is an unusual energy reading here," he said softly. "Something behind this panel." Vela's mind raced. She had seconds to act. She thought of Marcus's lessons, small actions that could be explained as accident or coincidence. She stepped forward quickly, as if concerned. "Let me check the diagnostic systems, High Inquisitor. This section has had electrical problems before." She moved to a control panel nearby and touched several buttons. Then, deliberately, she touched one more. A hissing sound filled the air. Warning lights flashed yellow. A computerized voice announced, "Coolant leak detected in Sector 7. Please evacuate immediately." "Coolant leak detected in Sector 7. Torvek stepped back from the wall, his scanner forgotten. Vela grabbed his arm with appropriate urgency. "High Inquisitor, we must leave. The coolant is toxic to our respiratory systems. My engineering team will seal the leak." They evacuated the cargo bay. The doors sealed behind them. Vela called her engineering crew and gave them instructions to repair the leak, instructions that would keep them busy for at least an hour and would require fully sealing the maintenance room for safety. Marcus would be safe. For now. But Torvek was watching her. His pale eyes studied her face with unsettling intensity. "That was quick thinking, Commander," he said slowly. "Very quick. I know my ship, High Inquisitor. The safety of my crew is my first concern." "Of course." Torvek was silent for a long moment. "You know, Commander, I have been doing this work for a very long time. I have learned to recognize certain signs, certain patterns." Vela kept her surface calm. "What patterns, High Inquisitor?" "The pattern of a young officer who asks too many questions, who requests access to classified files, who seems troubled by the answers she receives." Fear tried to rise. Vela pushed it down. She thought of Marcus's words. The best lies contain truth. "I am a thorough officer," she said. "I was taught to understand my assignments completely. If my inquiries were inappropriate, I apologize." Torvek smiled his cold smile. "I did not say they were inappropriate. I said they were noticed." He stepped closer to her. His empathic pressure was immense. Trying to force her surface emotions to crack, trying to expose whatever she might be hiding beneath. "The hegemony values loyal officers, Commander. Officers who serve without question. Officers who trust that their superiors know best." His voice dropped to a whisper. "But the hegemony has no place for doubters, no place for those who lose faith." Vela met his gaze directly. She thought of the child's drawing. She thought of 40,000 dead on Velen 4. She thought of every lie she had been told since childhood. And she lied. "I have no doubts, High Inquisitor. My faith in the hegemony is absolute. I serve the Council with my whole heart." She believed it as she said it. Her surface mind was clean and pure, a perfect picture of loyalty. Her deeper truth waited in the locked room, silent and still. Torvek stared at her for a long, long moment. Then he stepped back. "Good," he said. "Very good." The inspection continued for another hour, but Torvek found nothing else of interest. When he finally returned to his shuttle, he paused at the airlock and looked back at Vela. "You have potential, Commander. Do not waste it on sentiment." Then he was gone. Vela waited until the Inquisitor ship had jumped to hyperspace before she allowed herself to breathe. She waited another hour until her crew confirmed that the coolant leak was repaired and the maintenance room was safe. Then she returned to Marcus. He was cramped and uncomfortable, but unharmed. He looked at her with amazement when she opened the panel. "You did it," he said quietly. "You actually did it." Vela helped him out of his hiding space. Her hands were shaking now that the danger had passed. "I was terrified," she admitted. "Every moment I thought he would see through me, but he did not. You believed your own lie so completely that even an inquisitor could not find the truth." Marcus gripped her shoulders. "Do you understand what this means? You can survive. You can fight. You can be one of us." Vela looked at him. She thought about what she had just done. She had lied to one of the most powerful people in the hegemony. She had protected a human enemy. She had committed treason. And she had survived. "How much time do we have?" she asked. Marcus checked his damaged device. 1 hour until extraction, just enough time." "Just enough time for what?" Marcus smiled. "For you to learn what comes next." He broke into her warship, then spent 6 hours teaching her to deceive her superiors. The final hour passed too quickly. Marcus and Vela sat together in the maintenance room one last time. The fear of the inspection had faded, replaced by something quieter. Something that felt almost like friendship. "I still do not understand," Vela said. "You risked everything to come here. You could have died. You could have been captured. Why spend your precious time teaching me instead of escaping the moment you could?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. He seemed to be choosing his words carefully. "When humans first went to space," he said, "we dreamed of finding other life. We imagined meeting new species, learning from them, becoming friends with them. We thought the universe would welcome us." He looked at his hands, scarred from years of hiding and fighting and running. "We were wrong. The universe was not welcoming. The hegemony did not want friends. They wanted servants. They wanted to use us and then throw us away when we became inconvenient." Vela felt shame, even though she personally had done nothing wrong. The crimes of her people felt like her own now. "But here is what I learned," Marcus continued. "The hegemony is not every Cathari. It is not every member of the council species. It is a system, a machine that runs on fear and obedience. Most people inside that machine do not want to hurt anyone. They just do not know how to stop." He looked at Vela with warmth. "I came here because humans cannot win this war alone. We are not strong enough. We are not numerous enough. But if we can find allies, real allies, people who know the truth and choose to act on it, then maybe we have a chance." "You came looking for allies on a hegemony warship?" "I came looking for doubt," Marcus said. "Doubt is the crack in the armor. Doubt is where truth gets in. And you, Commander, have been doubting for a long time." Vela thought about her career, her questions, her request for classified files, her growing sense that something was wrong with the universe she lived in. She had been doubting for years. She just had not known what to do about it. "What happens now?" she asked. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. It was simpler than the damaged machine that held the evidence. Just a flat piece of metal with a single button. "This is a communication protocol," he explained. "It connects to a hidden network that the hegemony cannot trace. If you ever need help, or if you have information to share, you activate this and wait. Someone will find you." Vela took the device carefully. It felt heavy in her hand, heavier than its actual weight. "I am not asking you to be a spy," Marcus said. "I am not asking you to risk your life. I am only giving you a way to reach us if you choose to. And if I never use it, if I stay silent and do nothing, then I will not think less of you. What I am asking is hard. Not everyone is ready for it. Not everyone should be asked to carry this weight." Marcus stood slowly. His wound was still painful, but he moved better now, stronger. "There is one more thing I want you to understand," he said. "Humans have a gift that other species find strange. We can hope even when there is no reason to hope. We can plant trees we will never see grow. We can work for futures we will never experience." He walked to the door and looked back at her. "The hegemony will not fall in my lifetime, probably not in yours either. But every small action, every delayed report, every prisoner saved instead of killed, pushes the future a little bit closer. And someday, maybe centuries from now, enough small actions will add up to something big." Vela stood and faced him. Two enemies who had become something more in the space of 6 hours. "Why do you believe this will work?" she asked. "How can you have so much faith in small actions?" Marcus smiled. It was a real smile this time, not sad or tired. "Because small actions already saved my life tonight. A commander who should have shot me instead lowered her weapon and listened. A loyal officer who should have called security instead chose to understand. You, Vela, you are the proof that small actions matter." He extended his hand. It was a human gesture of respect, she knew. A greeting between equals. Vela took his hand. His skin was warm, softer than her scales, so fragile compared to her people. But the grip was strong. "Thank you," she said, "for the truth, for the lessons, for believing I was worth the risk. Thank you for listening. That is all any of us can ask." A soft beep came from Marcus's device. His extraction was here. They moved quickly through the ship, using maintenance corridors that Vela knew would be empty at this hour. They reached a small airlock near the bottom of the vessel, one used for emergency repairs. Outside the viewport, Vela saw it. A tiny ship, barely larger than an escape pod, drifting in the darkness without lights or active systems. It was almost invisible against the stars. "How did you even reach my ship?" Vela asked, amazed. "Human engineering," Marcus said with a hint of pride. "We are very good at being where we should not be." He stepped toward the airlock, then paused. He pulled something from his pocket. It was the child's drawing, the one from Velen 4. "Keep this," he said, pressing it into her hands. "When you doubt yourself, when you wonder if what you are doing matters, look at it. Remember what we are fighting for." Vela took the paper, the two figures holding hands, the twin suns above them, friends forever. "I will remember," she said. Marcus entered the airlock. The doors closed between them. A moment later, Vela watched through the viewport as he drifted across to the tiny ship. It swallowed him up without a sound, then vanished into the darkness as if it had never existed. Vela stood at the viewport for a long time, looking at the empty space where he had been. Then she returned to her quarters. She filed her report about the inspection. Everything normal, no unusual activity. High Inquisitor Torvek found no issues with ship operations. She did not mention the human. She did not mention their conversation. The report was perfectly clean, perfectly believable, perfectly false. In the weeks that followed, Vela made small changes. A patrol route adjusted by a few degrees, creating a gap that refugee ships could slip through. A report about human activity delayed by 72 hours, long enough for evidence to disappear. A prisoner marked for execution who was instead transferred to a labor facility where the resistance could reach him. Each action was small. Each action could be explained as accident or incompetence. No one suspected anything. Months passed. Vela continued her duties. She was promoted for her excellent service. Her superiors praised her dedication. She smiled and thanked them while the deeper truth remained locked in its quiet room. Then one night, her communication device activated. A message appeared on the tiny screen. Just coordinates and a few words. "There is a hidden human colony at these coordinates. They are peaceful. They have children. A hegemony patrol is scheduled to pass through their system in 3 days. Can you help?" Vela looked at the coordinates. They were within reach of her patrol route. She could adjust her course, create a gap, give the colony time to hide or flee. It would be a small action. One more drop of water in the flood. She began calculating the new patrol route. Another message appeared on the device. The seeds you plant in silence grow forests in time. Thank you for listening. M. Vela smiled. She folded the child's drawing carefully and put it back in her pocket. Then she walked to the bridge to file her new patrol route. Her crew did not question the change. Why would they? She was their commander. She knew best. And if the new route happened to keep hegemony forces away from a certain set of coordinates, well, that was just coincidence. The long game had begun. Vela looked out at the stars as her ship turned onto its new heading. Somewhere out there, Marcus was still fighting. Somewhere out there, hidden colonies were surviving. Somewhere out there, other doubters were making their own small choices. She thought about the child's drawing, two figures holding hands. Friends forever. Maybe, she thought, that future was still possible. Maybe the dream of friendship between species was not dead, just waiting. Waiting for enough people to believe in it. Waiting for enough small actions to add up to something big. Vela had spent her whole life following orders without question. Now, for the first time, she was following her conscience, and it felt like freedom.